Cool.
Yeah, now you got a real gamer mic, so it works.
I got a new mic too that I got from Olivia's mom, and it seems to be working well. I can now like kind of turn my head a little bit, and I think you can still hear me. Whereas like I used to turn my head and it would be totally gone. So anyhow, all right, folks. Today I just wanted to kind of review a little bit of aspects of Puritan New England and original Jamestown settlement. We're only going to talk for probably 25 minutes or so. I just wanted to remind you guys what the learning targets are for this chapter, and then we're going to go from there. Hopefully you watched my video yesterday, so I don't need to explain the AP test or the final again or anything like that. If you have any questions about that, you could ask me real quick, or you could shoot me an email about it, but I don't want to really spend any time recapping it. Your assignment for this week, folks, is already been posted, and it's that period 2 review guide. I think I had one person finish it. I think Olivia Lynn in my 4th period class, I think already finished it, but 1 or 2 people finished it already. So I'd like you to finish it by tomorrow. Tomorrow night, I think, is the due date on it. I put on there. If you need a little bit more time, I could certainly be flexible, but that is the original due date. Olivia Newbold.
Thursday night.
What did I say? Wednesday night? I want Thursday night.
Yeah. Okay. Thursday. So it's 2 days, not tomorrow.
Yeah, Thursday. Thursday's the due date. Sorry, I botched that. So yeah. Any questions on that review packet, guys, or what what direction we're going for the rest of this year in terms of your grade? You all understand it? Go ahead, Olivia. You're muted, girlfriend.
No, I'm not.
Okay. Do you have a question?
I said, are we starting at chapter 1?
No, we really never ever do chapter 1. That's like stuff that isn't really that important. We kind of started with chapter 2, but really we're going to start in 1607.
Okay.
Why are you looking at me that way? Did you just read chapter 1 or something?
No.
Okay. Yeah, we don't really do chapter 1. It's pre-Columbian stuff. We don't really focus too much on it. So again, guys, let's pull up the learning targets. I'm going to share my screen with you for a moment. If you have your chapter 2 learning targets, that would be swell, but I'm going to go ahead and present my screen and share it. And you'll see Olivia's face pop on in just a second. Maybe. I don't know. It went away. All right, sweet. So hopefully you can see my screen now. And I'm going to go over to my website in case you lost all your paper learning targets. Remember, give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Sweet. You're presenting to everyone.
I left my learning targets at school in my locker.
Oh, well, fortunately for you, that's okay, because on my website, every single learning target lives there under the Learning Targets tab. So, folks, let's just look at chapter 2 for a moment. Remind ourselves what was important. It's downloading, so I'll go ahead and open that up. I recommend you guys do the same thing as well. And look at the vocabulary. A lot of that stuff should be really familiar to you guys. I immediately see stuff like indentured servants and encomienda system. I see some of the people that I'm familiar with, like Ann Hutchinson and Roger Williams from Rhode Island. So first things first, scan that vocabulary. As you're just looking at it to yourself, hopefully a lot of that is like, kind of causing some light bulbs to go off in your head. Maybe you don't remember it exactly, but if you have a little bit of frame of reference, that would be good. So look at the vocabulary. And then look down at our skill targets, folks. Remember, New Spain, New France, New Netherlands, and New England. We got to make a really basic claim about each one of those European nations and what are they doing in the New World. We're going to compare and contrast Jamestown, New England. Remember, our tobacco settlement versus our Puritan shining city on a hill. Columbian Exchange is really easy. You guys, you've been probably talking about Columbian Exchange for a couple of years now. This next one about a Puritan settlement, guys, don't worry about that. Just be aware that Puritans all congregate like in a town. So the neighbors can watch each other. So everyone can make sure you're going to church. If you live 3 miles outside of town on a farm, it's harder to make sure that, you went to all the prayer meetings. Instead, we're all going to live in town and we're going to travel to our fields outside of town. It's really not that important. I just don't worry about that learning target. I know what a typical Puritan settlement is. Just understand, guys, it's focused around the community center. In this case, the church, the Puritan town meeting. That really dictates everyone lives in town. Don't worry about it. The next one, though, is super important. Indentured servants to African slaves. Be aware, folks, of that process, and we'll talk about it a little bit. Bacon's Rebellion, and then, of course, examples of native resistance. We talked in depth about Metacom's war. We did not really talk about the Pueblo revolt, folks. That's a revolt against the Spanish in New Mexico. We instead focused on an Indian revolt in New England, and that's what we'll recap. But you got to have examples of native resistance, just like you got to have examples of slave resistance from later on in the 1840s, like Nat Turner and stuff like that. You got to have examples of native resistance, like Metacom's war. So again, those are our learning targets, and we'll just kind of briefly talk about a few of them as we go through the day today. I want to limit this video to about 25 minutes, so I'll probably get through maybe a couple of these learning targets. I'm not gonna pull out slides or anything like that, folks. If you want to open up slides, you could open the chapter 2 slides. That's where most of this information, or basically all this information, will be found. So, cool. I would love it if you would ask me questions, and I'm gonna stop screen sharing now because now I can't see anything. Hi, everyone. Is Jack typing in Harry Potter curses into the chat? Okay, sweet. So, well, maybe I'll leave presenting on just one more moment, folks. A lot of you guys who I hope that you want to practice a little bit, you also can find a whole bunch of previously used AP test questions. And these live on my website. They only go up to 2015, so they're the old ones. But be aware, folks, you can find, short answers and DBQs related to all of the stuff that we focused on. If we scroll down a little bit, we can probably find one really, look at this LEQ right here. Analyze the role of transatlantic trade. Oh, you guys hopefully remember triangular trade. That's not this chapter. We'll talk about that another day, but I just am showing you where these essay questions live. A really smart way to prepare for the AP test is to go through these essay prompts and just kind of be like, what would be my evidence? I mean, forget writing the essay. I don't want to write that essay, but I just want to kind of think for 5 minutes and think, what would my essay be? What would my thesis be for some of this stuff? So if you want, they're up there for you, just on my website. All right, cool. I'm going to talk about a few learning targets for a few minutes. And again, guys, any questions you want, just jump in, let me know. Unmute yourself and go. I'm going to talk about the first learning target, which is the goals of New Spain, New France, New Netherlands, and New England. All right. So I'm going to go out of presenting mode here. Stop presenting. Sweet. So folks, our first learning target, remember, we've got to understand that during the 1500s, we've got a whole bunch of different European nations seeking to colonize the New World. Remember, if you have colonies, it typically means wealth for you. We have European nations colonizing the New World. You got to know what they're doing and when. Remember, the Spanish are our first to arrive. They're all throughout South America. They're in Spanish Florida. They're in California on the Pacific coast. Where are the French? The French are in modern-day Canada and the St. Lawrence River area. They're in the Great Lakes. They're in places like Minnesota, Michigan. But also, remember, they control the Mississippi River all the way down to New Orleans. There's a good reason why there's French influence in New Orleans and in Cajun country today. And it has roots in the French colonization of this period. So we know what the Spanish are doing. They're also preaching Christianity and converting natives to Catholicism. The French are also converting natives to Catholicism. What besides conversion of natives are the French doing? Fur trapping. Remember, guys, the French are all about getting on those rivers, those highways of the time period, and acquiring skins. They trade with natives. They intermarry with natives. So do the Spanish. The Spanish also intermarry with natives heavily. So remember, if you should be able to find some similarities and differences between these people's strategies. For the Dutch, remember, guys, it's a really small Dutch settlement. It's modern-day New York. The Dutch are there trading beaver skins. They're not there to acquire wealth. They're not there really to intermarry with the natives. They simply are there to set up a beaver trading operation very similar to the French. They just do it on a much, much smaller scale. The more important one, folks, is what are the English doing? That's what you can write the most about. What are the English doing? Well, it depends on which region you're talking about. The English are doing different stuff up in Massachusetts than they're doing down in Virginia. Leave it to beaver. Am I right? Good one, Jack Walsh. Totally leaving it to beaver. That was pretty funny, I have to admit. You know what's lame about not being in school this week is we were going to do like the 1950s family this week in school, and I was going to show you a bunch of Leave It to Beaver clips, and they were funny, but now we don't watch them. So British, guys, remember, we've got the British really doing two different things in the New World. We've got the British in New England, and then we've got the British down in Virginia. Let's start with the first arrival. Remember, the Puritans, the Plymouth, arriving at Plymouth Rock, that's not the first arrival. That's 1620. The first arrival is in Jamestown, guys. Remember, that's a joint stock company, and that is a for-profit endeavor. They are setting up a tobacco planting colony. The ratio of men to women is way skewed Tons of single men, very few women in the first couple generations of Jamestown. It's primarily indentured servants. And remember, guys, we are not bringing over slaves until like 40. I mean, there are going to be a couple slaves, but we're not going to predominantly rely on slaves in the southern states for like 30 or 40 years, really up until like the 1650s, 1660s. Initially, remember, we rely on indentured servants because these laborers die really quickly. It doesn't matter if you're an African slave or a poor white British laborer from London, you're probably going to die in the first 2 years you arrive in the New World. If you're going to die within the first 2 years, I'm going to buy an indentured servant. They're way cheaper than buying a lifelong slave. So understand what indentured servitude is, guys. The economic conditions in England suck so bad, I'm willing to give Olivia 4 years of my life working on her farm if she pays for my boat ride. And as Powell is highlighting, until Bacon's Rebellion. Now, guys, Bacon's Rebellion simply signifies a couple of things. Bacon's Rebellion helps us understand that you don't really die anymore. This is called the seasoning. No longer are mosquito bites killing laborers. You can like live now. And we've got a huge population of poor people who used to be indentured servants. There are literally thousands and thousands of them in the Virginia countryside. They don't have really a lot of access to economic opportunity. They feel like the elites in the coastal regions of Virginia have skewed the tax systems. They feel like there's not enough access to the courts. And again, guys, Bacon's Rebellion helps us understand that it is now probably time to stop relying on indentured servitude. Once these people are done with their 4-year term, they're simply free. And what this has created is a very large class of underemployed poor people. I'm not saying unemployed, I'm saying underemployed poor people who generally feel like that the coastal elites have stacked the system against them. They really complain about unfair taxation primarily. I'll talk more about Bacon's Rebellion in a moment, folks, but if you got to remember that Bacon's Rebellion, it's not the reason we stop. Maya, is on TikTok. That's okay. Maya's allowed to be on TikTok. I'll allow that. I'll sanction that. It is her birthday after all. Remember, guys, Bacon's Rebellion doesn't cause us to stop using indentured servants. It's just simply the marker where after this time period, we're really going to stop relying on them. It's not like all of the planters got together after Bacon's Rebellion and collectively decided we're not going to do that anymore. No, it just is the marker where we're really seeing a transition from African slave or from indentured servitude to African slavery. So know what Bacon's Rebellion is. It's, again, a collection of lower class indentured servants being led by Nathaniel Bacon. He's not a lower class indentured servant. He's an elite. But again, guys, it's about class differences. That's what Howard Zinn writes about in that book. I believe it's called Tyranny is Tyranny. It's an early chapter. We read it earlier this year in class. Tyranny is Tyranny. I think if you want to review for the AP test, guys, because his chapters don't just talk about one topic, guys. His chapter covers all the way up to the American Revolution. I think that would be a really good chapter to reread. In fact, I think what I'm going to do, well, maybe not. I'm going to think about it a little more. I kind of want to assign a few more articles, so maybe I might ask you guys to reread that and take notes on it. Most of you have not taken any notes on it. Jack Walsh says no. Thank you for your feedback. I'm going to think about it. I don't want to inundate you with work, but I'm telling you right now, if you're paying attention, you should absolutely go back and reread the Howard Zinn chapter, Tyranny is Tyranny. That will give you everything you need to know. Read Tyranny is Tyranny, please, people. So looking back at our first skill target, New Spain, New France, New Netherlands, New England. The only other thing I want to say about New Spain, guys, is if you can have a vocabulary term that goes with it, that would be better. Encomienda system. Remember, that's how the Spanish make money. It's a slave plantation. But remember, the Spanish are enslaving Native Americans. That's what the encomienda system is. Be aware, encomienda. If you see that vocabulary word, oh, that's Spanish enslaving Native Americans, whether it's to work on an agricultural plantation or to work in a gold mine. The mission system in California, guys, is going to come a little bit later, but it's totally appropriate to talk about the mission system in California if you're asked about what the Spanish are doing. That mission system is really like a factor of the 1700s, not so much the 15 and 16s, but that doesn't really matter. You don't need to worry about differentiating. You could totally talk about the mission system. Hopefully you'll talk about the encomienda system. Hopefully you'll talk about converting natives to Catholicism. And it's very appropriate to talk about the brutality with the natives as well. France, they're also intermarrying. France, trading beaver skins, intermarrying, learning the language. They never really send a whole bunch of French settlers. The Dutch, trading beaver skins in New York, English, tobacco plantation in Jamestown, shining city on a hill in Puritan New England. Jamestown's indentured servants, New England is cohesive family units. New Englanders, guys, they're not there to make money. Yeah, they're going to have to do something to get by, but people are moving to New England to start their life over. People are not moving to Jamestown early on to start their life over, guys. And again, I'm talking about like the first 20 years of colonization. I'm talking about like 1607 to like 1637. Once you get later into the 1600s, guys, this stuff is going to change. I'm just talking about the initial points of contact in these colonies. Jamestown it's temporary. Why would I bring my wife and kids here, guys? I'm going to live here for a couple years, make my money, and get out. That's the initial logic behind Jamestown. That's why they don't send cohesive family units. Puritan New England, again, that's religious. They're fleeing religious persecution, and they're setting up that shining city on the hill. Anyone remember? Yeah, Alex, go ahead.
Oh, I have a question. So Bacon's rebellion, like I looked up and it said it was an armed rebellion, but like, did they like attack like the unfair coastal
Great question.
people, or like,
so there's not actually like pitched gun battles, Alex, but what they do is they arm themselves and then they barge into like council meetings and break them up. They barge into courthouses and basically break up court processions. They break into jails and essentially free debtors. Now, if I'm a prison guard, I'm not going to shoot it out with a bunch of armed people. If they tell me to let this debtor out of jail, I'm going to let him out of jail without resulting to violence. So when you see Bacon's Rebellion, and now I want to just triple check real quick, Alex, because that's what I believe, but I'm also not so ignorant to think that I might be missing one thing real quick. So give me about 15 seconds to look. And I just want to make sure, like, I wonder how many guns are even fired. I'm sure I won't find that information right away, but I'm just not aware of any type of like pitched battle that Bacon and
I think they take over the city of
You're
Jamestown,
right. So I'm totally.
They take over the town.
This is why I'm glad we looked it up, because I sometimes start thinking something and I try to simplify it, and then I overlook something like these guys burned Jamestown to the ground. So
Yeah.
Alex, I kind of got myself confused initially. I think what I was thinking of was the regulators that are not going to have like pitched battles, and that's going to come. And it's basically the same cause. But I think I was thinking of the regulators, the Carolina regulators, and that's like 1700s. So I'm really glad Powell chimed in. These guys burned Jamestown to the ground.
Okay.
So we could totally write this essay or talk about Bacon's Rebellion without mentioning that they burnt. But yeah, I mean, and the other thing I forgot about Bacon's Rebellion is Indians. Folks, part of the reason that the low-class settlers, the former indentured servants, are so pissed off at the governor and Governor Berkeley is because where do the low-class indentured servants want to go? They want to go further west. They want to get their own land out west. But what happens when you go out west? You get attacked by Indians. So now it's all coming back to me. Now remember that part of the conflict is the lower-class indentured servants are really pissed off that Governor Berkeley are not protecting them from Indians. They want the coastal elites to build forts out in the western parts of the state. These indentured servants want to be protected from native attacks on the frontier. And there really are not the elites in the coastal areas of Virginia are not responsive to those needs of the frontiersmen, is how I understand it. I'm really glad that Powell chimed in because I understood it was a class conflict, but I had forgotten all of those details about the burning of Jamestown and about the Indian conflict on the frontier. In fact, part of it, Alex, these indentured servants, they like do raids on Indian camps, incredibly violent, brutal raids on them on the frontier. And it's tit for tat. Then the Indians do it back to them. And then the colonists are pissed off that the local officials don't protect them on the frontier. Again, all that's good information, understanding the class conflict part of it. And Howard Zinn talks about that in the chapter Tyranny is Tyranny. I feel like Powell has some more to add. Maybe not. Yeah,
like with the with Bacon's Rebellion, I'm pretty sure that Bacon took over the whole city, and he could have held it out, but he died of like some of those weird diseases.
Dysentery. He got the hot poops.
Yeah, and then he just dropped in like 3 days, and then Berkeley had to flee Jamestown.
That's right. And then once Bacon's dead, the movement is leaderless, and it all collapses.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, that was like they could have definitely had some sort of version of the American Revolution if Bacon hadn't, gotten hot poops and kicked it.
Great contribution, Powell. I had forgot about that. And guys, please don't get bogged down in those details. I promise you, for this AP test, you do not have to know Bacon's Rebellion to that level of detail. What you have to know about Bacon's Rebellion is it represents class conflict between coastal elites and people on the frontier, the sons and daughters of former indentured servants. It starts with class economic conflict. also about their lack of response to Indian attacks on the frontier. And it will really boil over into those events that we described, ultimately resulting in a transition from indentured servitude to African slavery. When you see Bacon's Rebellion, the more details you can remember, everything you can remember is great, guys, but you just need to remember, oh, this is the marker of the transition from indentured servitude to slavery. And it's about economic class conflict. And that economic class conflict is never going to go away. Doesn't matter that the American Revolution is going to happen. That's why that chapter is called Tyranny is Tyranny. Excellent. Thanks for cleaning that up, Powell. I really appreciate that. Let's do, I think, like one more learning target for the day. Grace, you got a question?
What's the joint stock company?
Joint stock company. Think about this. If you're going to set up, I've got a boat and I want to send it to the New World, that's about an 8-week voyage. And in the 1590s and early 1600s, there's not a guarantee that your boat's going to come back. So a joint stock company is essentially just sharing the risk. You'll get a bunch of investors. So like, for example, the Jamestown settlement, it's a joint stock company. That just simply means a bunch of people pooling their money on sharing the investment risk that it might take to set up an overseas colony across the Atlantic. I don't know that that's the most important vocabulary word to know, but certainly just seeing it and recognizing like, oh, that's like when I see that joint stock company, that's like an example would be the for-profit enterprise set up at Jamestown. It's just sharing the risk. If I can find investors to invest in my voyage, help fund the supplies, fill the ship with seed and the other implements that I'm going to need to create a tobacco plantation, it's just easier to share the risk. That boat might sink in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, so it's nicer if I've got that risk spread out amongst other investors. And that's generally what a joint stock company would do in that period. Good question. Let's look at another vocab term. So we did the first one. We did Bacon's Rebellion. I'm comfortable doing that Bacon's Rebellion target. Comparing and contrasting Jamestown, I feel like we did that too, guys. You got Puritan New England, shining city on a hill. And then you've got the for-profit enterprise in Jamestown full of indentured servants. The only other thing I want you to remember, guys, is what they're doing to make money in New England. I don't understand why they want you to know this content, but they want you to understand they're selling cereal crops. And the other thing, what are they doing? Ocean going. I showed you a video on it because I liked it. Andrea, this is your question. What are they doing in New England besides growing cereal crops? Someone unmute and say it, please.
They're killing whales.
Is it whaling?
Well, yeah, we talked about how whale oil is going to, really be the first lighting source, any petroleum base. And so early our candles are made out of whale oil. The early English, I know we're still a little bit away from 1740 and the English Industrial Revolution, guys, but the English Industrial Revolution is going to be fueled with whale oil. So it's not that important, but just remember what they do to make money in Puritan New England. They typically make money off of the sea, whether it's harvesting whales, other fish, and sending them back to back to England, or harvesting timber, cereal crops. Andrea, go.
Well, they killed all the sperm whales, and still today, sperm whales are like afraid of humans, or like they have trust issues because people killed them and were mean to them.
So isn't that so sad that generations of sperm whales have inherited a distrust of human beings? How sad.
Yeah, I watched a documentary on it, and this one guy was like swimming with them, and they let him swim with them for a little bit, but they were like keeping their distance, and like it was sad.
Oh, I think that you should try to go for college to the Scripps Institute of Oceanography. What'd Gibby say?
Okay.
Gibby says that applause of Jaws 3. That was funny. You guys make me laugh. People, I'm going to cut it there in the interest of time, just because I don't want to overload anyone. We did 3 learning targets today as far as I'm concerned. Let me screen share again real quick, and then we'll cut it off here. Present. Grace, go ahead.
What's Anglicization? It was on the review guide.
Anglicization, that is the process of becoming more like the English church or the Church of England. So Anglicization, in this context of the 16 and 1700s, it means to become more like the English church. So we would say certain areas. So Grace, and I know you'll get this one because you're super sharp. Between New England and Jamestown, which is the more anglicized colony?
Well, I would say New England because it's more like a family and religiously. I mean, they're religiously against the church. But
exactly, they are breaking away from. So sorry, I feel like a jerk for putting you on the spot. I'm sorry, but the Anglican Church, guys, has got a grip on most of the colonies outside of New England. New England is, again, separatist. Now, that I promise you, you're not going to be tested on that. That's not going to come up. But just know what that word Anglicization means. In this context, 1700s, it means to become more like the English church. Nowadays, Anglicization just to make it sound more English. You know, there's lots of immigrants who have anglicized their last names historically, whether by choice or not by choice. But that's what that word means, Grace. Great question.
Okay.
So we did 3 voting targets today, folks. We did the first one. We did what are the European powers doing in the New World. We compared and contrasted Jamestown and New England. And we did Bacon's Rebellion. We talked about a few vocab terms. I would say the most important one left on here, guys, which I'll do next time we talk tomorrow, will be Metacom's War and Pueblo Revolt. I don't need to do Columbian Exchange. You know what Columbian Exchange is all about. Metacom's War and Pueblo Revolt we'll spend some time on tomorrow. Cool.
When
For
is it
7?
tomorrow?
What time tomorrow? Well, earlier rather than later for me. And again,
Okay.
guys, if you can't get on the live stream, it's no problem. I'm not going to lie. I'm partially on vacation right now, so I want to do whatever works best for you. But if you can't be on the live stream, you can just check the YouTube out. So let me look at the schedule again tomorrow that Jason texted me. Jason
Wait,
Searle.
Mahoney, stop
Yeah.
presenting.
What?
Stop presenting, unless you need to.
There. Why did you not want your face to be on the screen anymore? So
Mhm.
tomorrow, what's tomorrow? Wednesday? 2nd. My preference, guys, is to do it at 9 o'clock tomorrow.
I have AP Bio at 9 o'clock.
So give me another, someone else shout out another time. Jack says 9:30. The reason I don't want to do it 9:30, Jack, is because technically the periods are in 50-minute chunks. So whatever AP Bio is going at 9, they're going to plan on probably doing that for that 50-minute chunk. So I don't want to start it. Odie says before noon.
Don't do it at 11 because I have something with Mr. Dick also. Please. Thank you.
Are we like meeting for 7th period or no?
No, never will we do that.
Okay.
I'm available, Josh. I'll be checking my email a bunch, so you could totally hit me on email or whatever. And if you wanted to individually FaceTime or Skype, we could during that period time. But we're never going to actually meet during our period time.
Can you see my screen?
I can't. You're playing some stupid snake game.
Okay.
Do you only live like once and you just have all of your classes like try and join that one?
That's what I want to do, Olivia. I mean, in theory, I could live like all day, but maybe I'm being lazy, but I don't really want to.
Yeah, I don't think there's a reason to do it if you can record it.
I don't. That's my logic, Josh. So I'm adopting that logic because it's the easiest solution. But I also think that if someone anyone can watch these videos. I'm checking email all the time. The only advantage of being in the live stream is it's sometimes fun and social networking, but to be able to ask a question in the moment, and anyone can email me and ask a question, and I'm happy to address it. So yeah. So I'm gonna do after. Odie said 10. I'm gonna do 10 a.m. tomorrow, guys.
As far as time goes, multiples of 5s are the best.
Multiples of 5s.
Yeah.
Olivia, you're shaking your head. Why?
Well, I was thinking I might have had a live with Miss Lehman, but the only thing I have to do tomorrow is watch the 12:45 video, I think. Right, Lauren? You're in my class. Wait, are you in my class?
Or how about this? Okay, cool. We also, I don't know that we have to do live every day. We can, but anyhow. Whatever. Tomorrow, guys, we'll just play it by ear. We're going to do it day by day. Tomorrow's going to be 10 a.m., okay?
Wait, Mahoney, did we get marked absent if we don't come on the?
No, I'm not taking it. There's no taking attendance.
Okay.
Basically, every week, the admins email the teachers and say, hey, have you not heard from any of your students? And have they do you have any students that have just not turned anything in and you think we need to reach out to? But none of you fit that category. So it is totally acceptable to miss a live stream for any reason whatsoever. I just hope you then, watch the video and reach out with some questions and stay up on the reading, folks. Anything else? I like seeing your faces. This is fun. Bye, Maya and Jack.
Yay.
Happy birthday.
Jack? Thank you. This is not Jackal.
Jared, sorry. I got you. Sorry, whoops. There's Jack.
I'm flattered you.
All right, guys. Anyone else have any other questions? I'm gonna go ahead and hit stop recording.
I am far better than Maya's boyfriend.